Meeting to order for the Zoning Board of Holmdel. Can you please read the opening statement?
In accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, NJSA 10-4-10, and the regulations governing remote meetings, NJAC 539(1.5, I hereby announce that adequate notice and electronic notice of this meeting was provided in a notice dated January 14th, 2023, that was sent to the Asbury Park Press, Two River Times, posted on the bulletin board and on the main access door to Town Hall, filed in the clerk's office, and posted on the township's website, www.holmdeltownship.com.
Roll call.
Dr. Blumenthal,
Here.
Mr. Burkle. Mr. Burkle is absent. Ms. Campus? Here. Ms. Gerhart?
Here.
Dr. Lateef? Dr. Lateef is absent. Mr. Luciani?
Here.
Mr. Orphanatopoulos?
Here.
Mr. Giampolo?
Here.
Dr. Shah? Dr. Shah is absent.
Can we seat John for, I think Jason told me he was on his way. So we'll seat him for, there's Jason now. So we'll seat him for Orphan. Thank you. Okay, let's stand for our Pledge of Allegiance and then remain standing for a moment of silence to honor our military and police and first responders. Marty, if you could lead us for Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item number one. Item number one.
Cannon Hill, LLC, 33-35 West Main Street, Block 13, Lot 16.05 and 21, SD number 664. Applicant seeks a lot line adjustment, minor subdivision for the existing two lots, which requires variance relief for exceeding maximum lot coverage for proposed lot 16.05 and exceeding maximum lot coverage for proposed lot 21.
Thank you. Are all notices and paperwork in order and escrows, etc.?
Yes.
Okay, before we start, we'll swear in our professionals, and I'm going to ask our professionals to give a little quick introduction on this project.
You swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God? I do.
I do.
Conflict?
Is there any conflicts here of board members with the applicant or vice versa? Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Sure. Do you want me to start, Bob? Yeah, I'll start because this application is rather planning focused. So the applicant is here tonight to seek a lot line adjustment, which in this case is a minor subdivision for two existing lots that are located along West Main Street in the B2 district, excuse me, the B1 district. This is in the village portion. So what's happening here is that there's two lots. One is essentially L-shaped. It's the Crew's office building, and then in front of that, at the intersection or closer to the intersection, is the old firehouse. And that is kind of takes up the front portion of the property. So the applicant is seeking to move the lot lines. Sorry, I'm trying to just get my notes in front of me. So that the sorry about that. So basically, the lot line will be removed so that both of the properties are more similar in size and are more regularly shaped. The issue here is that there is an existing office building on the westernmost lot, and moving the lot line does create a D4 FAR variance, and that's why this application is before the zoning board tonight. So that's really the main crux of the application. There's a few other existing and proposed variances that the applicant will get more details with, and we can discuss both variances. some of which will be exacerbated, some of which will be more cured on the 2 lots. But the real question, I think for the board's evaluation as you go through this hearing tonight, is looking at whether bringing the existing firehouse building is going to be brought more into conformance in terms of FAR, although that building is currently vacant and we're not sure, the applicant has not stated what that property will be used for, anything like that. But at the same time, the office building, which was approved in, what year was that approved?
2018.
2018, thank you. So relatively recently, will now have an FAR variance on the lot. So that would be, the FAR would become approximately 0.32, where 0.20 is permitted. And so, you can look at the table that's on the bottom of page 2 of my letter that details, kind of the existing and proposed bulk variances. But, again, the reason this is here is because it's creating that FAR variance on, oh, I'm sorry.
Kate, for the purpose of the new people, can you explain what that means, what that variance means?
Sure. I just wanted to correct myself, is that I did misstate that the variance is going to be 0.245, where 0.20 is required. And FAR means floor area ratio. And that is basically used in a lot of cases, in this case for commercial structures, and you're really looking at how the floor area of the building on the site, whether it's new or whether it's proposed, what the ratio of that building is to the land area. So in this case, since the subdivision would, moving the lot line would give some of the existing lot, 116.05, the western lot, to the firehouse lot, the lot area of 16.05 would go down while the building stayed the same, and therefore the floor area ratio would go up, and it would exceed what is permitted in the zone. This is what's known as a D4 variance, and I think I can go through this. I think it may be better to go through the actual proofs after the applicant's planner has testified.
That's fine.
But yeah.
Okay. Bob?
Thank you,
Okay,
Mr. Chairman.
Just a sec. A question for Kate. We've occasionally dealt with a D use variance, which requires a supermajority.
Yes.
Now, this is an FAR, but it is a D4. What, is it also a
It
super?
also requires a supermajority. Yes,
It does.
all D variances do.
Could you explain what the FAR, was going above the recommended FAR, the impacts of that?
I will, I feel that might be better left to the applicant's
Okay, well,
planner.
let's wait a little for that. We just want to get a quick introduction from our professionals about the case.
Thank
Bob,
you.
do you have anything?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just, basically, like Kate said, this is a lot of the planning issues, and the engineering issues are relatively minor. We would like, the applicant, there's loading space requirements. I'd like for him to testify as to how this minor subdivision affects the loading on both sites, both lots that are proposed. I'd like to hear some testimony as to the disposition of the firehouse and what they intend on doing with that. I'm concerned about any new ADA requirements that will arise as a result of the subdivision. And just that the minor subdivision will comply with the map filing law of the state of New Jersey, whether they're going to file it by map or by deed. We're suggesting and requesting that the property have all caps, iron pipes, to identify the new properties. And then we would like some testimony on the access and maintenance, site triangles, parking easements, shared parking, because now they're going to be sharing the parking as opposed to the cruise building is now going to be sharing the parking as opposed to having the parking on their parking lot now. as it exists. So those are basically the engineering issues that I have. The site is very well maintained, so there's no drainage, there's no lighting, striping, like usually when you have a site plan, you have the opportunity to have them improve the site if there's alligator cracking, if the striping is missing or faded, if the lighting does not meet the township standards today. It may have met it when it was built, but it may not meet it today. All of those things don't exist because they've really kept it and maintained it very well. So those are the engineering issues, and if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer.
Thank you for the introduction. And now over to the applicant. Introduce yourself and your professionals.
Good evening, Mr. Chair. Salvatore Alfieri, Cleary, Giacobbe, Alfieri, and Jacobs on behalf of the applicant. Just by way of brief introduction, if I can, just to supplement what you just heard. As indicated by Kate, the approval of the main office building by J.R. Cruz Company was 2018. That building has been built and operating. In 2021, I'm sorry, J.R. Cruz obtained a CO to occupy the firehouse building. They bought it, and they are currently occupying it as part of their business. So J.R. Cruz occupies both buildings fully. They did get a CO and a zoning permit, so they're operating with or without this lot line adjustment. The property operates as it does today. The reason we're here, really, because the question would be, why do you want to draw this imaginary lot line? Why do you want to change it? Is because there is no septic system in the firehouse building. There's a tank that gets pumped for the effluent. So in order to install a septic system, it has to be on a separate lot. You can't have two septics on one lot. And there's no room on the fire company lot because it's such a small lot. So he has to move the lot line so they could put a new septic system in. If we can't move the lot line, they're just going to pump the effluent and continue to operate the building. Unfortunately, that's the reality of it because there's no room for a septic presently. Now, we would agree as a condition of approval, and that we would stipulate it very easily, is that we would have a cross-access and parking agreement in place that would be recorded in the county clerk's office. So this site, or these two properties, will operate as one. Whether J.R. Cruz sells one or two, 10 years, 20 years from now, they'll still operate as one. The parking lot will be maintained by the owner. They'll have the same access, the same parking. So today it's all J.R. Cruz, and the intention is it's going to remain that way, but no one knows what the future brings. But there will be a cross-access agreement. We would have to work out those details with the board professionals. As it relates to the FAR, yes, we are creating an FAR variance, and again, as Kate indicates, that's the only reason we're here. Otherwise, we'd be at the planning board. But the FAR, as she indicates, 20% is allowed. So you could essentially have 20% of the property for the building. And we're creating, because of this lot line, we're going to be 24.5% on the large building lot. But the firehouse FAR is 0.319, so it's way in excess of the FAR, and by this lot line adjustment, we're bringing the firehouse lot into conformity. So we're creating one FAR, but we are eliminating another. Let me see, I think those were the main things I wanted to introduce to you. The engineering comments we'll get into momentarily. We have no issues with them, and we do have a planner as well who will put the necessary proofs on for the FAR. And now I'd like to introduce our engineer, if I can.
Go ahead.
So why don't we swear all your witnesses in right now?
And we'll swear Mr. Cruz in, just in case you have questions of him.
Perfect. So everybody just raise your right hand. Swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
For the record, all of the applicant's witnesses have been sworn, and you'll do this CPs when you...
Yes.
One at a time.
Okay. Please state your name and by whom you're employed.
Sure. Name is Sameh Wali, employed by Dynamic Engineering.
Just spell your name for the record.
S-A-M-E-H. Last name is W-A-L-I.
And Mr. Wally, we're seeking to have you qualified as a licensed engineer. Would you place your credentials on the record, please?
Yes, I'm a licensed professional engineer in the state of New Jersey. I graduated from NJIT with a Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering. I'm currently employed as a licensed professional engineer at Dynamic Engineering. I appeared before various boards throughout the state of New Jersey, most recently including Clinton, the city of Summit and Union Township, and I've worked on several industrial, commercial, residential projects throughout New Jersey. I have over 4 years' experience, and I've worked on a few subdivision plans as well.
Okay, any questions from the board? Okay, we accept your credentials.
Thank you.
I just want to ask you one thing. Is your mic on? Is the little red light lit there? Okay.
You want me to get
Because
closer?
remember, this is being transmitted, so you've got to be close for it.
And if you're standing, we'll give you the other one, too.
Yeah.
Okay, so Mr. Wally, can you, although the board, I'm sure, knows where this property is, could you identify the property and point out to the board how it's currently developed?
Absolutely. So the property is currently located at 33-35 West Main Street, also known as County Road 520, and is specifically identified as Block 13, lots 16.05 and lots 21. It's actually located in the Neighborhood Village B1 district, and as stated previously, it's currently occupied by the J.R. Cruz office, and a little bit more background is it's actually it was formerly known as the old firehouse for lot 21. Just wanted to actually walk through our subdivision plan that was submitted to the township. The subdivision plan is dated June 20th, 2022, last revised October 24th, 2022, with a scale of 1 inch equals 30 feet, with north pointing to the top of the sheet.
Excuse me, are you referring to the plan that's on the easel?
That is right behind me.
So let's mark that, please.
I'll mark this as Exhibit A1.
They have a little sticker.
Are these the same as these small sheets that you handed out, or we all have?
Courtney, they're the same, right?
I just printed what they had sent me.
Yes, this was previously submitted to the township.
Yeah.
Okay. Those are the e-copies. She printed the e-copies.
So,
These are dated though, so it looks like August 30th, I don't know.
could you identify what A1 is and what the
It
date
says
of
August
last
30th,
revision?
22,
Yeah, last revised October 24th, 2022.
and these are old.
Oh, and I may not have had that.
I don't know if they have.
Oh,
Okay. There's really no change other than the date. Well, you do.
This one that I got is 1024.
Yeah, the larger one, yes.
I have some
Okay.
11 by 17s if you guys would like me to distribute. Sure.
While I'm doing that, again, just identify that exhibit so the record's clear what A1 is.
Sure. So Exhibit A1 is titled Subdivision Plan, dated June 20th, 2022, last revised October 24th, 2022, scale of 1 inch equals 30 feet, with north pointing to the top of the sheet.
This says August 2.
This is the same one.
No, this says June 30th, 2020.
What about the box at the top?
There's a revision date at the top right corner.
Yeah, we have it. Here.
They're the same ones. We had the right.
Okay. We're good. Yeah, I wasn't looking at the side box, I was looking at the bottom box.
So you have the, okay.
Yeah, we're good. Everything is fine.
Now you have two.
Now you have two.
Perfect.
Okay, so can you describe for the board what's being proposed with the subdivision or lot line adjustment?
Yeah, absolutely. So as mentioned previously, this was in essence really derived from the need for a septic system to service that old firehouse. Currently, as it stands, the existing lot area does not have enough space to provide a septic system that will meet the code requirements for setbacks and as well as area, which is why we're requesting the proposed subdivision. And just a little bit of background for the site, there's actually 3 existing driveways, one to the west, which is going to be on the far left of the sheet. It services only lot 16.05. It is an egress only, so it only functions as an exit. In addition, we have on existing lot 16.05, one full movement driveway, essentially right in between the two sites. And This is a full movement driveway. Again, no changes proposed. And lastly, we have an existing driveway for existing lot 21, which is, again, one full movement driveway. Just want to emphasize again, there are no proposed changes to these driveways anticipated at this time, and all three of these driveways will remain as part of the subdivision. The entire subject site is approximately 2.45 acres, and again, there's no proposed disturbance as part of this application.
While you're talking about the driveways, the Route 520 is a county road, correct?
Correct.
And we have a pending application before the Monmouth County Planning Board?
That is correct.
Okay, sorry, go ahead.
So that essentially covers the existing access. As for the what we're actually looking at for the subdivision plan, the red text as well as the line work for the subdivision plan depicts the current existing property lines, whereas the black text and line work depict the proposed property lines. So it just kind of gives you an idea of what is currently laid out on the Township of Holmdel tax maps, whereas the black property line that's being proposed essentially splits between the centermost drive aisle, where we are anticipating providing a shared access easement.
Hey, Ralph.
Yeah. This plan does show where the existing septic field for the existing building on the left lot is. Where are you proposing to put the new septic field?
The new septic
Doesn't show here, as near as I can tell.
Right. Yeah, because we haven't obtained the Board of Health approval yet, because we need to get this done, but we could point out generally where it would be, sure.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, generally it's going to be located at the northeast corner of the site.
Can you point to it with your ruler?
It'll be at the rear of the parking, to the top right of the sheet.
So that the line to it will go under the parking lot?
First aid call, that's all that is.
Yes.
Yes, that's
And-
correct.
Okay, so there's relatively little disturbance to the site as a consequence, but the main disturbance will be for the septic field itself?
That's correct, yes.
Approximately how much area will the new septic field take up?
I don't know if you've designed it yet, if you can answer that.
We don't have that information yet. We were, at this point, just looking for the proposed subdivision approval.
Yeah,
Bob?
good.
Bob's got a question. Bob?
Yeah, no, Dr. Blumenthal kind of got in front of me. The septic field and the septic system, if approved, we'll have the opportunity to review that along with the.
Yeah, we have to get Board of Health approval, but we certainly have no
Yeah.
issue with including
And-
the town professionals.
Special condition.
Right, and then, again, if approved, I'd like to see where it's going to be located, if that's going to affect the parking area, if we're going to have to disturb that, just then I would want to see almost like a site plan.
Yeah, you have
How-
to see a plan.
How they,
Yeah, because I'll just take it one step further. Depending on the size of the septic area and the disturbance that may then trigger the new stormwater rules.
I don't know that that's necessarily true, but we can.
Because
we can look at that.
there's, at present, there is no stormwater facilities for the site. There's no detention basins or anything.
Bob, can you review that with the engineer and
Yes,
determine if
well,
that could happen?
That'll be part of the.
Yeah, because if you have to start doing stormwater here,
Yeah.
that may impact a lot of things.
I just have a quick question. This might be for Sal and Bob. So, I mean, I understand this situation here. Obviously, you can't get Board of Health approval until you get a subdivision. And this is, since this is a minor, it's not like you could just get preliminary or something like that. So, and this might be more for Bob, but so just the installation of a septic field, that's not something that would require returning for minor site plan approval or
No.
anything like that, right?
No.
Okay, just want to be sure. So that's something that could clearly be covered as a condition, special
Of
condition,
approval.
if this were to be approved. Okay.
So
Yeah,
we
my
have two
concern is-
special condition, one for the stormwater and one for the septic, right?
Well, the stormwater, if you trigger the stormwater requirements, that's a significant change to the site plan.
Yeah, if we're very comfortable, we're not going to because the land area, if we did, we probably wouldn't do this because we'd have to put underground detention, it would be a major construction
Correct.
project. Yeah. We
Yeah, I
understand.
mean, that's sort of a key trigger when those new rules get start.
We'll let
and
the
if it's-
professionals look into
We'll
that.
look into that.
Thank you. Go ahead.
So, a couple of follow-up questions. One of the comments in the engineer's report is that the fire building have ADA compliant parking stalls. You're willing to stipulate as a condition of approval that those will be installed to the satisfaction of the board engineer?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, and in terms of, Mr. Bucko mentioned the map filing law and corner markers, the applicant would comply with that as well?
Yes.
There's a question about loading spaces and the loading activity. Could you comment on that?
Yeah, so I actually just had a chance to talk with the applicant on this earlier, and they don't anticipate any changes to loading. Everything is going to remain as is currently. They don't really experience much loading to begin with at all in terms of deliveries. But as emphasized before, there's not going to be many impacts to the actual circulation of the site, and so it'll continue to function as it does today.
Okay, Bob?
Yeah, I just, and this is very recent, with all, site plan applications, we have to look into the EV parking.
Right.
Right.
All right,
Well,
so,
we're not
you know-
sure, we discussed it, Bob, I'm not sure
Yeah.
the answer, because it's not a site plan, it's just a
Yeah,
minor
minor
subdivision,
subdivision,
so I'm
but-
not sure that triggers
well,
the
that's
EV.
what we need to.
If if we are required to do it, we would do it on the fire company lot, because those would in theory be the new lot that's being expanded. But Mr. Cruz and I have talked about it, everyone's voluntarily doing it now, because that's where the world's going, but.
Does the board, the EV is for the electric vehicles? That's what EV stands for?
Okay.
Parking for the electric vehicles.
Yeah, that's
Now,
for everybody's doing them now.
The state has just come out with rules and regulations on the different way, the criteria for providing these EV parking spaces.
Would that
Not
apply-
Not only regular parking, but for ADA and handicap.
Would that apply to both lots?
Pardon me?
Would that apply to both lots?
Well, that's what we got to look into. The rules are very gray.
Yes.
So.
How many
and
pages?
Kate knows, so.
50 pages?
No, very few pages, that's
No,
the
very
problem.
few pages.
Oh.
They haven't thought them through yet.
No.
Yes.
And
Well-
the crazy thing is we get double credit. If we put one in, it
Yeah.
counts
Right.
as two
It came
spaces.
to two spaces.
In my opinion, there are a couple ways to look at it. In my opinion, we'll discuss this. It's, the question is really whether it applies to any application or only if you're really adding floor area.
Right.
Or if the application involves any type of new building, which this one does not. So, I think in Holmdel, that's how we have been interpreting it. Obviously, we haven't had any, most, as Sal just said, most new applicants are happily
Right.
doing this. So it really comes down to these cases where it's kind of a gray area. But, we can discuss that when we come down to.
Okay,
conditions.
so how do we want to handle it paper-wise? We want to put another condition?
It's required.
If required,
Yeah.
exactly.
All right, so who's going to tell us that? You are, Bob?
Yeah, well, yes, I will, because we just had a seminar on it, and like I said, that's how I know that it's very gray as to whether or not this will be required,
Something down.
and I have to look into it a little bit closer.
Okay.
It'll be up to.
Yeah, it'll be up, yeah, right, and
Okay.
I'll discuss with Mr. Wiley.
A condition subject to our engineer and
We'll work
engineers.
All the
We'll work it out.
conditions.
We'll
Okay.
certainly work that
Absolutely.
out. It's not a big
Okay.
And what, are EV spaces bigger?
No.
No, they have electrical wiring
They
underneath
have
the
elect,
ground.
they have,
Just like a,
So it's more of
parking
a concept of the cost to the applicant rather than an engine, rather than, and they can, they can only be placed in certain locations, things like
Right.
that. But it's not like ADA where you might have to reconfigure the size of the parking lot or anything like that.
okay, thank you.
So, Mr. Wyatt, this one thing you said you would install the ADA. Is that just is that sidewalks or ramps, or what was the ADA?
Parking stalls.
Just the
parking
parking?
stalls?
Yes.
But there'll be ramps for the
Yeah,
sidewalks.
they have to
Yeah.
be fully compliant.
Yeah,
Everything
on
has to
both
be compliant.
lots.
Ramps,
Well, the-
sidewalks,
Okay.
both sides.
The existing big office building is already ADA compliant. It's
Okay.
only built in 2018, I think, or
Okay, I see the spots.
Yes,
The
lot
rules haven't
16.05
changed.
is compliant.
So this is just lot 16, Bob?
Yeah, the
Yes.
firehouse, yes, correct.
Okay, go
well,
ahead.
Okay,
yeah.
continue. I wanted you to highlight just the variance relief that is either improving and/or changing, and then our planner can get into that in more detail.
Absolutely.
But
So-
Before you do that, just to confirm, you have no issues with, the map filing law or deed, identifying the property corners with markers?
Correct.
Okay.
So basically, everything that the engineer wrote, you're able to handle and
We will comply
to.
with, yes.
Okay,
And we'll investigate the stormwater management.
okay.
Yes,
So you don't have to go into all of that then, saving
No.
you time.
No.
sure.
My question would be, you've reviewed the professional reports and you've agreed to address all their technical comments, and the answer is yes.
That's it.
So, but we want, the reason we're really here is because of the variances, because we're not, it's an imaginary line that nobody ever will see, and variances are triggered because of that.
We got it.
Right, so I'm just going to run through the proposed bulk chart, essentially running over the existing and proposed conformities for the lot. In essence, we are, again, shifting over this lot line to be aligned to the center drive aisle, and in doing so, we will end up bringing in the, apologies, looking at the floor area ratio for lot 16.05, we will require a variance, as we'll be increasing from 0.167 to 0.245, whereas 0.20 is permitted. In addition, the max lot coverage will also require a variance. We are technically reducing it with the designation in the new lot areas. We will decrease from 63.2% to 63.1%, whereas 60% is permitted. Next, we have the lot area. Yeah, so lot area for proposed lot 21, it's actually an existing nonconformity. This will be brought into conformance up to 49,523 square feet, or 1.14 acres. As for lot width, lot depth, those are also compliant. Just a note for lot 21, it's actually an existing nonconformity where 165.81 feet is existing, 200 feet is being required, and we will again bring that to conformance with 351.08 feet. The front yard for lot 21 is not going to change. It's an existing nonconformity of 30.4 feet. The side yard for lot 21 will be brought into compliance. It is currently 9.9 feet. Side yard requirement is 20 feet. We will propose 31.9 feet. As for
The
rear,
9.9 is to the existing line, which is then being moved, and that's how you meet that, okay.
that is correct.
I think that's it.
And lastly, for the floor area on lot 21, again, as testified earlier, the existing floor area for lot 21 is a nonconformity at 0.319, whereas we will reduce down to 0.15. And as for the maximum lot coverage, existing is 90.9%, whereas we are proposing 71.4%, which would obviously be bringing it closer to conformance, but again, would still require a variance as only 60% is permitted.
And that concludes the engineering testimony.
Okay, professionals, can you ask any questions you like?
Yeah, just one. The site requires, the application requires that you have at least one loading space. Can you just briefly touch on how, if it's actually, if a loading space is required and how, you know, deliveries and such are proposed for, you know, I'm sure that the Cruz building has, you know, already has established, what would they anticipate for the proposed firehouse? Because you're gonna leave the building the way it is and use it as it is.
Yeah, and it's all office space.
Right.
So it's just
For the
UPS,
record.
FedEx, that sort of deliveries. They use it parking space just like they do in the big building. They'll use that here, deliver and leave, mailman, same thing. So there's no loading because there's no construction equipment or other type of businesses other than office business.
So the garages that are there are what, no longer used?
No, Mr. Cruz has his car collection in there occasionally. That's
Oh,
what
okay,
that's
so
for.
that they're
It's
still
not-
used as garages.
Yes, just as garages.
So the office space is where the old community room was that you're referring to?
Yes, and they have conference rooms in there now
Right.
and office space in there.
Okay, so that's the only office area. The garages are still garages?
Yes, is that correct? Yes, yes,
Okay,
that's correct.
okay. Any of the board, Kate, did you have a question?
Yeah, I don't think we talked about parking. This is really, a lot of this is really, I have first part of this is asking whether if adding the ADA spaces will reduce the number of parking on the new lot 21 at all, which I'm not sure if the applicant can answer right now. The other is that basically a parking variance, off-street parking variance is required here for both lots. It's really a technicality since nothing's being changed. Although I will say that, you know, knowing that, because we didn't have the information when we wrote these reports that the applicant was using the firehouse as office space. So combined 108, based on what's there now, 108 spaces are required for both buildings in total, where there are 73. So, you know, if you look at obviously, you know, the entire firehouse is not being used for office space. You know, if you broke it down by what's actual usable area, we would probably have a lower number, but I think we can say confidently that technically a variance is required, especially because this is comment number 3 on page 3 of my report. 31 parking spaces, because at the time, so when the 31 parking spaces would be relocated from lot 16.05 to lot 21 as a result of this proposed subdivision. So, you know, again, having them under common ownership, this is much less of an issue, but the variances run with the land, the subdivision runs with the land. So if the easement were to ever be extinguished or something like that, there would technically be a parking deficiency. So I think, you know, the applicant just put a little testimony on the record about parking usage on the site and how that's being handled.
Okay. And
Kate, just a question. When you calculated the number, did you calculate including the garage bays and assuming they were going to be offices?
I used based on what was on the subdivision plan,
Right.
which was 7409, which is 38 spaces required. So it's
So actually,
probably
it's really less because you're keeping them as garages.
Right, but a variance will still be required. We would ask that they provide the exact number as a condition. But, you know, if you were to assume, say, 4,000 square feet of it are usable space. I've never been in the building, so I can't speak for sure.
Well, it's basically almost half.
So,
I've been
okay.
in the building a number of
So
times.
say 4,000 square feet.
And, Mr. Chairman, we calculated it the same way.
Yeah.
Kate and I got both numbers for
Okay.
parking spaces.
Okay.
Right, and just before I turn it over to the engineer, as it relates to the cross-access and parking agreement, there will be a provision in there that it cannot be modified or extinguished without the township approval. So we can't unilaterally change or extinguish that.
Okay.
And that's a standard provision we include in those documents.
Okay.
Another condition.
Good.
And your professionals will obviously see that before it's even, assuming it's approved. Okay, parking, you want to discuss?
Yeah, so as for parking, so proposed lot 16.05, there are going to be 70 spaces required, 73 spaces are existing, again, because all the parking is currently designated for the J.R. Cruz building to the west, whereas only 42 spaces are proposed. That, again, is going to be a variance. As for proposed lot 21, there's 38 spaces required. Again, this is before we reduce the actual garage area, which would essentially bring it down. We will confirm that at a later time with the township engineer, but there's currently no designated parking existing. There's no parking spaces currently striped out. So in providing the ADA access to the rear, we don't anticipate losing any parking spaces just because it will be parked essentially up against the building where there's currently no striped spaces. And there are a total required of 31 spaces proposed. Again, there's no loss in parking, although there are 2 variances now being triggered. It's really just a matter of how the parking that's currently on site is situated in relation to that proposed lot line.
So Bob, do you agree with him that the handicap won't take any more spaces? Don't you have to have more space for like a van type of handicap or anything like that?
No, based on this and what I saw on the site, yes, I agree.
Okay, you agree with him, that's fine.
Yeah, and, yeah, all right, just for the record, the township construction official has reviewed this and has no objection to the site as it relates to barrier-free subgrade requirements. The Township Director of Infrastructure and Operations reviewed this plan and have no comments on the application. The Township Police Traffic Safety Officer reviewed this plan also and have no comments on the application. And the fire official noted that fire hydrants, fire lanes, fire zones are adequate in number and are in proper locations. So just so the board knows that the township township officials have reviewed this site as well, in this application.
What's the situation with regard to site triangles and the like? Do they currently exist?
They're going to have to provide those, if approved, they'll have to provide those, and they'll have to do a meets and bounds description, and Mr. Alfieri has already represented that they will file those with the deed restrictions.
Yeah, I mean, some of those for the existing building may exist, but for the firehouse, I'm pretty sure they don't.
Yeah, I'm
Well,
sure
no,
they
but-
don't.
But they'll provide them. They've already testified that
Okay.
they'll provide those
Okay,
as required.
professionals, that's any other questions? Board members? Any questions? Okay, opening it up to the public. The public out there, do they have any questions? Silence means they don't. Okay, moving on.
Thank you. Justin? Yep. Justin Alciello, A-U-C-I-E-L-L-O?
Correct.
Um,
Justin Auciello, A-U-C-I-E-L-L-O.
You were sworn in. Can you identify by whom you're employed and what your credentials are? We're seeking to have you qualified as a professional planner.
Capone Consulting Group, licensed planner in the state of New Jersey. I've been licensed since 2008. I have a master's in planning from Rutgers University. I have been practicing planning now for almost 20 years, approximately 15 years licensed. I've appeared in front of this board in the past. I've appeared in front of the planning board. I've also appeared in front of most boards in Monmouth County. My planning practice really runs the gamut from master planning to redevelopment, and of course, work like this. I've been involved in numerous applications like this in the past, also many office applications, etc. And my license is current.
What towns?
In
Testified here.
Monmouth County? Oh gosh.
You testified
Seabright.
Howell Monday night. You were with me.
Yeah, Seabright, Marlboro, Howell, Hazlitt.
Freehold Township.
Freehold on many occasions, Middletown,
Okay.
Bradley Beach.
Okay.
I can go on.
Any questions from our boards? Members? Okay, we accept you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Justin,
Chair.
we want you to present testimony to support the FAR variance,
Correct.
obviously. And then, since there are C variances, we need you to get into those.
Sure. So the FAR variance, the standard is whether or not the site can accommodate the problems that are linked to the proposed FAR.
And that standard's a lesser standard than the D1 variance.
The Medici variance, right. The Medici variance requires that you demonstrate that the site is suitable for the use. It requires special reasons, and then in the negative criteria, there's a higher standard than the standard for the D4. I think just globally speaking, I think your board planner really laid it out in her opening, that simply this is a lot line adjustment. Nothing from the standpoint of the layout of the building, the layout of the parking, et cetera, is changing. This is only to accommodate the septic system, which currently is a tank which has to be pumped out, less than ideal situation. Your board planner also stated that it's more similar in size now, if the board so chooses to grant the lot line adjustment and the variances, and more regular in shape. So I think from the standpoint of the FAR, again, as our attorney had stated on a few occasions this evening, this line, no one's going to see it. It's invisible. Can't see it from the naked eye. There's really, from the standpoint of whether the site will have the ability to accommodate the proposed FAR, and I would note that the FAR variance is for the office building, which was constructed in the last few years. It's not for the fire department building, which is well under the FAR. I would say that the site can certainly deal with any quote unquote problems that would be linked to the FAR. So relative to the bulk variances, which our engineer had discussed through his testimony, again, I would say that no one's going to be able to see these variances. These variances are linked to the lot line adjustment. I would add that this application does improve some variances, or actually it brings their now conforming the lot depth of lot 21 and the side yard setbacks on 21. There's a slight decrease in lot coverage on lot 16.05, and a significant decrease on lot 21, whereas variances are still required. I would say that the engineer did lay out the required variances. He gave the details, but again, I think from a planning standpoint, I think the benefits of granting those variants, or the public benefits of granting those variances, do outweigh the detriments. Generally speaking, from the standpoint of purposes of zoning that are supported by this application, and again, for C2 variances, it's a public benefit. What is it in this application would benefit the public? Certainly, the applicant, does intend, moving forward, if the board so chooses to grant this variance, to improve the building, more, better curb appeal than what currently exists. A building that's going to be similar to the office building that was recently built. I think it's also a public benefit, the installation of the septic system, as opposed to a tank that has to be pumped out. Also, I think, as we agreed to earlier, having the cross-access easements and the ability in the future, if the board chooses to grant this variance, and for decades to come in perpetuity, for access between the lots, for parking, et cetera. So again, that also is another benefit. Purposes of zoning that are advanced, criteria A, I believe that this certainly does promote the general welfare of the community. Certainly the firehouse building needs some TLC, and if the board so chooses to grant this variance, it will receive that. I think curb appeal is something that's quite important. The visual environment, which is criteria I, that's part and parcel to general welfare. Sufficient space and appropriate locations, which is G, criteria G. Certainly, this is a lot line adjustment. There will still be sufficient space to accommodate the activities of both buildings. Lastly, for the negative criteria, no detriment to the public good no substantial detriment, excuse me, to the public good. Certainly, again, it's a lot line adjustment. It's invisible to the naked eye. And again, there are many benefits that are associated with this application. And lastly, whether or not this, the grant of this variance or these variances would negatively impact the zone plan, the zoning ordinance. It's a permitted use in the B1 zone. Certainly, again, the curb appeal will enhance the zone plan. No negative impact to the purposes of your zoning ordinance. Many of those purposes do incorporate by reference the purposes of zoning from the MLUL. So as established in positive criteria, I would say that this application has no negative impact to that. And the master plan, lastly, economic development, land uses in suitable locations, et cetera, high quality design, those are all from the master plan. And these variances or this application, so the board grant the approval, would certainly push those forward as well. So that concludes my testimony. I'd be happy to take questions.
One question that I have, and then we'll go to professionals. You mentioned curb appeal. Are you planning to change the facade of that building to match the facade of the other office building?
Yeah, Mr. Cruz is they're going to change the facade to match the color and materials. It may not be identical, but very similar to the new building,
And what's
yes.
he going to do with the garage doors?
Same, make them more attractive. They're not going to be the
Okay.
same.
All right.
So let me
Professionals?
Let me just follow up on that question. I don't want to put words in your mouth. You're talking about simply changing the aesthetics of the building, not modifying the building footprint, size, shape, or structure in any way
Correct.
at this time or in the near future?
That's correct.
Okay, because when I first saw these plans, I said, why? There's nothing in the package that says the reason is a septic, which is, gee, okay, yeah, but that's a motivating reason that has clear weight to it.
Yeah.
And I said, do you want to put a 100-story office building here, or what's going on?
No, it's the only reason. No increase in footprint, and it's the building exterior material that's going to change to be more aligned with the office building.
It's not an especially attractive
No,
building at
understood.
this point in
And
time.
as you can see, the other building is beautiful and really nicely maintained, so Mr. Cruz does take pride in his property.
Okay, thank you. Bob?
Well, Mr. Chairman, that was going to be our question. We were talking about that and the architectural facade.
And we have no
Fire
issue
out.
showing your board professionals the plan when it's
I was going to
finished.
suggest a condition that our board professionals review the facade to verify.
That's fine.
I would add that in fact, the ordinance requires it.
Okay. Well, that's
For the
what-
village, for the village district.
Okay, that's right, that's a village district,
Yep.
you're right.
Yep.
Okay, we got
Now
that.
Thank
that-
you,
Just a
Gregory.
question for the app, Mr. Alfieri. Is that something you're committing to doing? or-
Yes, the plan is almost finished, so it just wasn't ready to present tonight, but yes, we have no problem.
We're
Okay, 'cause
disappointed.
It's a question of
if you really,
timing.
if you really want to see the latest version, we could show you, but it's not final. If you want to just get an idea what it's going to look like.
I can't harm to show the board.
We'll just include that as part of the condition. You will be
Yes.
doing it, and obviously, put
Yes.
an ordinance, so submit to the board of professionals.
We're going to show it to you, but it's not final, but you at least
Okay.
get a
Okay,
feel.
I guess
And we
my
should
con-
mark it into evidence because it's not it's not the final version, if you
My
don't mind.
concern here at the moment was just with regard to timing, because if this is approved and a resolution adopted, then there's a certain timeline you have to follow, and you need to,
Yeah, that's going
It
to
wouldn't
look
have
like
to
the
be,
building.
it wouldn't
next
have to be completed. We would just have to
door. It looks like an
approve the
updated
plans, I
firehouse.
think. Because they would have to get a building permit anyway.
And
Okay.
Mr.
Correct.
Cruz indicates his goal is to have everything done, septic installed, and this work done by year end, so.
Okay,
Yeah, our variances are to the existing buildings. They're not to the work to be, the renovation, work, the facade work.
Yeah, I would go ahead and say that, I don't know if the village, I can just gather everything I was gonna say at once, so let me
Well, I
get
didn't
through
I
this.
didn't restate it, since once they do the facade change, you have to look at it by ordinance, correct?
Or before they do the facade change, the plans, yes.
The only question is, wrong. The applicant's counsel has said we will be doing it in the near term. Do we want to make that? I don't think it's required, but does this board need to make it a condition that they will be doing that within a certain time frame? I think that's over.
I don't think you have to do it within a time
Correct.
frame. I think the applicant has said on the record that they agree that they will be completing these facade
Yeah,
changes.
my concern was, of course, simply a question of the sequencing of the requirements and the, getting the permits and the whole process.
Wait, Bob, we can't hear you.
Well, the issue,
Wait a minute.
Mr. Bucko asked,
I'm sorry.
Mr.
Bob,
Bucko asked,
put it
if-
on the record on the mic, please.
My question is, would the board be satisfied that a CO would not be issued until the facade was completed and approved by the township?
He's already on.
They
yeah,
don't need a CO.
there is no CO.
Oh,
There is no
Yeah,
CO.
we're in
Yeah.
with a CO already.
Oh, okay.
So we would agree that we'll have it done within 12 months of the resolution of approval. Is that fair? It's probably going to be done sooner, but at least you know it's going to happen.
And they will have
Okay.
to show us their final plans, and they'll be part of the resolution compliance process before they can file the subdivision.
So who normally would, when they did their other building, who's the one that looked at that to tell them that they were in compliant?
That building, that was at the planning board application?
Planning board,
So
yeah.
So the
would
planning
have looked-
board looked at it.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, that was kind of a different, because that's something where the planning board would typically look at architecturals. This is something that in my understanding is that when there is some kind of modification to an application in the village, they have to submit it as, it's something that's typically submitted. This is kind of a unique situation, because obviously if you're modifying your building, you're submitting a package as part of your zoning permit application and your building permit application, which this ordinance does allow for that. And so, if Lonnie or whomever reviews that permit is looking at that. This case, they are before the board. It's not technically a site plan, but they are proposing this facade adjustment facade change in addition to the subdivision. And my read of the ordinance, what I think is appropriate here is that, it's under the board's control as part of this overall application. So it'll then be, the way that a zoning board application usually is done, once it's under resolution once they've complied with the resolution, the special conditions, then the whole package goes for zoning permit and then building permit.
Thank you for the clarification.
All right, and the other lot was the planning board. They did have draw architecturals. They made the doorway more compatible.
Yeah.
I mean, the building was brick to start with, but I think they made some changes and to make it fully conform to the look of the office building that they were going for. And that was all before our professionals on the planning board.
Okay. Professionals, any other questions?
Yeah, I was just, just very briefly to sum it up, I think the applicant has, explained what they're doing here very clearly. Like Dr. Blumenthal just said, we weren't really sure what the end goal was here, especially with, you look at, on my letter, I have a comment on number 1, it says, applicant should address the proof in the context of a quote-unquote self-created hardship, because, this is a new building on one lot, what's going to be happening on this lot, and I think that the applicant tonight has put on the record very carefully, very convincingly, truthfully, that this is kind of their site now. The whole site is going to be used as one, and it's going to really be 2 buildings, just with almost like a technical lot line that's being used for the purposes of the septic system. And I think that with the controls that are here, which is basically that they're maxed out on FAR, on obviously we're granting the variance for the office building site, but the current firehouse site is also essentially maxed out on FAR, and most changes would have to come back to this board. They have the easements for both the parking and the access in place that cannot be extinguished without the township's knowledge. I feel comfortable that the site is going to be fully controlled, and that the impacts of the increased FAR will not kind of radiate. And I would also note that, even though the lot lines are changing, I just did some very simple math, and in total, if you look at the combined sites, the FAR combined for both buildings, it is still under 0.2. Just barely, but it is still under 0.2. So
That's a good point.
yes. So, if you looked at them at 2 separate sites, which I think, taking the worst case scenario, we were looking at that. But I think, if there's no more floor area added this time, I don't have any further questions or, objections.
Okay, good. Anything else from your professionals, or does Mr. Cruz want to say anything?
He wants to say thank you, hopefully, at the end, but no, otherwise not. And Kate, that was a great point. We should have thought of combining it to get the FAR.
Well, that's my immediate follow-up. Should they simply combine it into one lot?
We can't because you can't have two septic systems.
Ah,
That's the reason.
okay.
Okay, board
There's
members.
always a little wrinkle.
Yeah, and we don't make the rules. Yeah, that was one of the earlier considerations.
So
but
is
no.
there just a, following up Kate's wise comment, is there a need to have a condition that any increase in floor area will be viewed globally versus, because there is some room on lot 21.
I think that gets into an enforcement issue.
Okay.
It's too difficult to enforce. I think that the way that the lots are situated, that I don't think that that's going to be a problem. Yeah.
And
And
they'd
I'll
still
also-
have to go to the planning board or zoning board for
Yeah.
a site plan approval.
Yeah, I would also note that one thing that does make things a little easier is that in this zone, every use has the same parking requirement. So, even if Mr. Cruz were to still control the site, but it would be used for retail or something like that, there wouldn't be like that sort of change that you see other places. Everything's just 1 per 200. So I think we're okay the way that we are.
What if he wants to add a generator?
Generator, is that?
Emergency
Might have
generator?
We have a generator already. Yeah, it's a firehouse.
They took it, maybe.
Oh, the firehouse has a generator.
And it's still there?
Still there?
It's still there.
Okay.
We have room for a generator in the main building. We just
Yeah.
haven't installed it yet. We're waiting for a load count.
I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure if it's a minor. If they were to increase floor area, or excuse me, if increase impervious.
Just
something
bring
like
that up, because that's one of the
Yeah.
most common reasons that
Yeah.
a site plan gets modified.
Yeah.
So is somebody going to update the plans to show what exact in the firehouse building is office space versus garage space?
Yeah, we could
I would
provide a
expect-
floor,
yes.
we could provide a floor
So
plan.
this way
I
the
think that would
formulas
only
will all
benefit.
match.
Yeah.
That's fine,
And I
Yeah, I
think
mean,
that would only
that
benefit.
drawing that Mr. Cruz had almost begins to show that.
yes.
It actually shows a preliminary.
Yeah,
Great.
that's, Marty made a suggestion about the generators to show them on the plans.
Yep, I was just gonna,
This way, we have a pad space and we know what that is. And is there any other things that we need to know about, garbage containers or anything else like
So
that?
Sal, that'll, if you show the pad on the lot, the office building lot, will that increase your slightly?
No, because we have.
You
to-
have a pad already?
We already have a pad.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah.
I just
and-
wanted to get rid of any,
Right.
come back for.
And there's a
Well,
large
exactly.
asphalt area
What
behind
about
the
trash
firehouse.
containers, anything like that, that needs to be placed? There any
Well,
rules
no.
about that? They got it?
the office space that they're proposing, and I don't want to speak for Mr. Cruz or Sal, that, it would just be a regular container that you would use as a regular recycling or trash.
And they
Not
have,
an enclosure with a bucket
they
type?
have an enclosure on lot 16.05.
building.
Yeah, the office building lot.
Oh, it's over in the left front corner?
Yeah, and then I'm assuming that it'll be a similar situation where the firehouse is. But I don't want to speak for them.
Yeah,
Let them put that on
while
record.
while they're both occupied by Mr. Cruz's company, they're using the dumpster. If they were separate companies, they would take the garbage to the curb on the small office building. It's not a big, it doesn't generate a lot of waste.
Okay. Any board members have any additional questions for the applicant for anything you've heard so far?
Yeah, I have one.
Go ahead.
I was looking at, behind the firehouse, there's an area that looks like it's concrete or whatever, and could be used for parking, but isn't designated for parking, right?
It's paved.
It's paved.
Yeah, and the engineer testified that that's probably where the ADA spaces will go, and it won't impact the parking lot, because they'll be right up to near the building.
Yeah, behind the whole building, it's all paved.
It is, yes.
Yeah, but none of the so-called 73 parking spaces, that's not included, then?
No,
No.
Okay. But in fact, if somebody needs to park there, they could.
they could, sure.
Okay. Anybody else? John? No. Lori? Okay. Anything else you guys?
That's all
have?
we have. Thank you all for your time.
All right. Okay, board discussion?
Public.
Public, we went through this before, but anybody in the public have any comments, questions? Silence means they don't. Close the portion for the public. Is closed. So, board discussion?
None? Do either Kate or Bob have any final comments?
I think I gave mine.
Yeah, just, you know, they, even though it's an imaginary line, it will be identified by survey pins and, you know, just the fact that we had the discussion, if you're gonna have a pad for the emergency generator in the firehouse, just show it, so you don't have to come back.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right?
Okay,
Those types of things. But other than that.
we're good.
You know, the engineering is very minor and very simple. And they've
Okay.
agreed to do anything that I ask, so.
Great. And anything?
Not
Kate?
anything, anything in your report.
Kate, you're okay too?
I just have one, I just call it one number 5 in our report I didn't go over, it's just a typo in the table. B1 district side yard is 20 feet, not 25 feet, so I actually had one less variance than was shown on, so just edit that.
Which
when
one,
you-
Kate?
What?
Which one did you?
The side yard?
Yeah, they just had the wrong side yard setback on the zoning table.
Right.
It's number 5 in my report.
Okay.
Oh, it's 20, not 25?
Yeah, so they actually, the existing one did comply. Just a small thing, but just wanted to just address that.
Okay. Marty, why don't you go over all the conditions, special conditions that we spoke about? Let's make sure we covered everything.
We will report a cross-access and parking agreement. Obviously, all these are subject to board professional review. They will allow the board professionals to review the septic plan prior to moving forward. They will agree to comply with all the board engineers' requirements. They will comply with EV parking if determined by the board engineer. They will, in addition to recording the cross-access agreement, they will also have a condition that they will not modify it or cancel it without township approval. They will agree to record site triangle easements as necessary. Again, board professionals will review. And one more, I believe, was the issue with
Facade.
the architectural.
Facade.
Yeah, submit those.
And they'll modify the plans to show the generator pads and...
They're already on it. Yeah. They're already on there, you said.
I don't see
They
them.
are.
There-
There's
Oh,
no,
they're not, they're there, but they're not on the plan.
there's no,
Right,
nothing
okay.
showing where they are. Okay, so you'll fix that. Okay, with that being said,
Well,
oh.
I didn't hear, they'll also provide a floor plan of the firehouse?
Why do you have that?
Oh, for the garage?
Yeah,
Yep.
Well, to show the breakdown between office and garage,
right. And then,
because that impacts the parking requirements.
Is that it?
Update your parking table accordingly.
Is that good, everybody? Okay, if that's good, can I have a motion from a board member?
Motion to approve the variance.
I'll second the motion.
Can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Orfanatopoulos?
Yes?
Dr. Blumenthal?
Yes?
Mr. Burkle?
Yes.
Ms. Campus? Yes. Mr. Luciani?
Yes.
Ms. Gerhart?
Yes.
Mr. Giampolo?
Yes.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Mr. Cruz, you have a comment? That's it? Thank you. We want to see your cars.
Just FYI, if you had said up front that the reason was the septic, it would have given us a better feeling ahead of time.
Yeah.
Okay, we have another item on the agenda.
Good night.
Item number 2.
Item number 2, Verde Woods 2, 739 South Laurel Avenue. Zoning Board Variance 2022-3R, Block 50.13, Lot 1. Applicant granted amended site plan approval to modify the architectural plans submitted in the original Zoning Board approved 2017 application.
Okay, Marty, you want to talk a little bit about this, please?
Excuse me?
Yeah.
Can I have them?
You gotta leave those.
You can take it off. I don't need it for it. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
She wants more paper.
More paper.
So that was, the resolution was circulated to the board members, our professionals, as well as the applicant's attorney. They had a few just minor little things just today, and they've been corrected. Bob has signed off, and Kate, and I believe all the board members have seen it. So pretty standard. There's all the conditions are in there from our hearing.
And I commuted a few things with Bob, and you
Yes,
took
it's
care of
like
those
it's in
things. Okay, so everybody have any comment? Anybody have any comment on this?
Well, question. You indicated there were some comments and changes. Does the version the board members got include
Yeah,
those?
no, he had, there was, set up 20 feet, we had 19 in the resolution, that he just corrected it, 17.4.
So they were all minor?
Oh, yeah, nothing substantive.
Nothing.
No conditions.
No new bus stops?
None of the conditions changed. It was just it was in the applicant's testimony. He wanted to just clarify a couple things he said, which I didn't agree with, 2 of the 3 things, so. And one was in the 17.4, the distance from the closest parking spot to the house. And I had 19, I don't know if that was in the,
I think they ended up changing it.
they changed it, so he just wanted to reflect the actual
Okay.
17.4.
Fine.
Okay, we don't have any further comments or changes. Can we have a motion?
Let's see, who's eligible?
Who's eligible?
Francine,
Is not?
No, she's out.
she recused, everyone else.
Okay, so can I have a motion?
Motion to approve the memorializing resolution as stated here?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Fenatopoulos,
Yes.
Dr. Blumenthal,
Yes.
Mr. Burkle,
Yes.
Mr. Luciani,
Yes.
Ms. Gerhart,
Yes.
Mr. Giampolo.
Yes.
And just for the record, those comments came in about 5 o'clock today, so no one, that's why no one is, so, matter of fact, Courtney didn't even see it. It's sitting in her inbox, but it's not.
Okay, so that concludes the applications. Professional reports? Do we have anything to report, Marty? Legal
No.
things going on?
None?
Bob?
Just if you don't mind, just a couple minutes.
Well, you have 10 minutes.
Yes.
You can have 10 minutes.
Okay. I just thought that this, with this D variance tonight, I just wanted to just do a brief overview for the new members, especially, and also some of the other members, because, the zoning board sees a wide variety of applications, and I just want to talk very briefly about the jurisdictions between the planning and the zoning board.
Good subject.
Because sometimes you'll see pool variances and things, and backyard variances and small residential variances. And the reason those go to the zoning board is because the municipal land use law has an exemption where no single-family or two-family residence has to have a site plan. They are exempt from site plan applications. And so the planning, so if there's no site plan involved, the jurisdiction goes to the zoning board. So that's why those applications go to the zoning board. The planning board will then see applications that are for site plans, even if they have C variances or something like that. So a site plan application will include, anything involving a commercial building, anything involving townhouses, things of that nature. So because the MLUL exempts single-family homes, that's why those variances come to the zoning board. And then on the flip side of that, the zoning board also has jurisdiction over the D variances. So, you have your typical D, the highest level, you could say D1 use variance, and then you have what we had tonight, D4 FAR, floor area ratio variance. So there's all of the D1 through D6, which some of you have heard me cover in previous previous presentations, you've heard it from applicants. But, those variances are, because the way the MLUL is written, those variances are considered to really rise to a level of requiring, what they call, what's the language, for special, in specific cases and for special reasons. That's the only time those are supposed to be granted. And so the jurisdiction for that goes to the zoning board. And so that's why, for example, those are considered almost like bigger decisions in some ways, and that's why there's no township committee members on the zoning board. That's why there's no elected officials on the zoning board. of any stripe, because what you're doing here is you're looking at applications that do not comply with the ordinance in a way that is determined by the municipal land use law to be more drastic than a C bulk variance. So that's why they call this board quasi judicial, because you're kind of making bigger decisions in a certain sense, you know? So
More
it's
complex.
what's that?
More complex.
More complex, yes, and there, it goes outside the scope of what the, of the ordinances that the township committee has adopted, and that's why the makeup of this board looks different. So, you know, I just wanted to just, you know, I'm happy to answer any other questions. Feel free to email me or anything like that. If you have any questions or ask me at any hearings, straight up, why is this application here? So that's why I think it's an interesting, one of the more interesting aspects of the zoning board is that you're looking at these relative, you know, they're not always simple, but they're smaller scale, single family residences, and then you're looking at something that just like really doesn't comply. It's not permitted, the use isn't permitted. So that's where the differentiation is made.
You know what I think? I mean, we tried something different today with letting the professionals open the meeting, and I'm not sure how everybody liked that, but it was a test, and I think I'd like to see we try it again and see how that works out, because I think it helped us give us an idea what was going on before we start listening to the testimony.
Yeah,
as long as you stay
I prefer
general.
something very succinct.
Yeah, I mean, one thing you just said that, you said if single-family things don't involve a site plan, but something like a pool automatically does involve a site.
That is not a site plan.
That's a survey.
It is not what is defined as a site plan by the MLUL. It looks like a site plan.
Yeah.
But the definition of a site plan per the municipal land use law, it doesn't matter what they submit. A homeowner could submit a huge package, a 25-page packet of plans. If it is a single-family residential application, it is not a site plan. That's state law.
Oh, okay, you're hanging on the language. Because for a pool, we often want what I call a site plan to be able to see what's going on and what else is impacted, how's it go to the neighbor and all of that kind of stuff. So we need I don't know what you want to call it.
Survey.
Yeah, it's a glorified.
It's a
More than a
survey.
survey.
It's more of a plot plan.
Yes, I would say you know, when I write letters for something like that, I try to almost always avoid the phrase site plan.
Right.
And I would say most engineers do too.
Right.
That's why you'll see them called like plot plan or pool plan or just grading plan or something like that. Because site plan, you know, you might look at it and you see this, but it's the state terminology is bigger than the actual piece of paper.
Okay, good point.
It's the implication.
Yes, but yeah, it doesn't matter what they submit, they're still technically exempt from site plan approval.
Thank you, Kate. That was nice, very informative.
To follow up, so we had a few years ago, on the corner of Roberts Road and Holmdel Road, there's those three houses now built. That was a density variance. That's another was that D3? I can't remember what number it is. So that came before here, even though it's a subdivision application. So we heard, I don't think except for Dimitri, anybody was here, but so this board heard a subdivision application essentially, but they were trying to get they could only get essentially 2 lots that were compliant, and they were asking for.
That's the one across from the cemetery.
Oh, was that the
That's
other
right.
Mumford application?
Yeah.
Oh, no, it was
Across from the cemetery.
Holmdel Road, across from the cemetery.
Oh, yes, sorry.
So,
yeah. So
same idea though, yeah.
That's why, you know, almost, just not that there's that many of them anymore, but the majority of larger subdivision applications all go to the planning board.
Right.
That's by design, because a lot of them don't even require variances if they're designed to the standards of the zone. But yeah, when there is, and we get into all the complexities of it, because sometimes if one lot in a subdivision doesn't meet the bulk standards, that will also go to the planning board. But when they overall can't meet the density, that's when they come here. So, yeah.
Great information. Thank you very much for your
Hope I
time.
was helpful and hope I didn't confuse people.
We're going to do these little chats on when we can.
When the meetings end at 8:05.
Yeah, when they end up this early. Okay, board secretaries, can you tell us anything about any future applications that are on the plate coming in?
We have Bay Shore coming That's the next meeting. For,
No, it's April.
Because there's only one meeting in
Next
April
meeting, right.
because of the holidays,
Right.
the school schedule. So the meeting is April 5th, or April 12th.
April 12th.
Yeah.
No, there's two. It says April 26th.
yeah, I think we do have to.
Oh, we do?
Yeah.
We changed the first one.
So is there, so the hospital is coming in on the 12th?
Or an amended site plan. They're doing
I was so smart.
parking.
A little cut through?
Yeah.
Signage.
You almost ought to put them on the agenda every year.
And then what about for the later April
I
meeting?
don't have anything scheduled.
Okay, so we're not going to do anything about that yet, but
Not at the moment.
if something
There
comes
are
up?
pending applications, we have 16 Mount, which was deemed incomplete,
Complete, yes.
and then we just got a new one in that you guys just received.
Okay,
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
the extent.
can I have a motion from a board member to adjourn?
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
Second from John?
Second.
Okay. Okay, that's it.
Chief,
Thank you, everybody.
they want to stay, Dimitri.
Okay, I'll let you do a class then.
Why do you think they didn't say that septic was the reason in the first place?
understand
why they made it so hard.
Yeah, I mean, one sentence would have.
Made a big difference.
Yeah,